Welcome to For the Record. On this program, we talk about local events and issues of interest to our local people. Today I have with me Leonard Sanders. Len is a longtime Sudbury resident, and he's president of the Better Business Bureau that covers northern New England. Len, perhaps you might tell us something about the work of the Better Business Bureau and how consumers can use it.
Well, I think first I'd like to tell you we're the ungovernment bureau. I don't get a dime from government. And a lot of people have written to us and called me up and said, you know, what the state needs is a government Better Business Bureau. And we probably do, but, you know, that is not our role. I think first I've got to explain what is the Better Business Bureau. We've been around, you know, like for 65 years, more than 65 years. The concept started right here in Massachusetts at Faneuil Hall, believe it or not. The first thought of having a Better Business Bureau happened at a meeting there. And the whole idea was that there were many businessmen, consumers, media people that were concerned about advertising, deceptive false advertising, as well as selling practices. And we've been doing that kind of thing over the years, trying to eliminate these kinds of practices and also eliminate, to the best that we can, government becoming involved in the private affairs of most consumers. So basically we're supported by business, responsible businessmen. We're supported by universities, colleges. We're supported by many media people, newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, even the station that we're on right now, believe it or not, is a member of the Better Business Bureau. Thousands of consumers are members of the Better Business Bureau. And the reason that they're members is because, as I'll explain later, you know, they want some of our literature, some of our warnings, alerts, and what have you, and get on the mailing list, and it just costs a couple of dollars. That's all for consumers. Right now, you know, everything has its time and everything has its season. This is the season for home improvement. You can walk around the town, Sudbury, and walk around the streets and what have you, and you'll find that this person is putting in a swimming pool and that person is cutting down bushes and trees and doing landscaping and what have you, and somebody else is, you know, doing their driveway, and a lot of people are doing additions and they're building decks. And the reason that they're doing all of this now, one of the reasons is it becomes much more expensive to go from one house into another house, and people have opted to fix up where they're living rather than to buy another house, whether it's because of the price of the house or the interest rates. Although the interest rates are coming down a little bit, it's still very costly, and, you know, to move from one part of town to another part of town, you know, sometimes it's easier, less expensive to fix up your own house. Now, when you get into fixing up your own house, you know, this is probably one of your major purchases. What's your major purchase? The biggest purchase you make in your lifetime is your home.
Well, this was one of the reasons I had thought of Better Business Bureau, was because of all of this expansion I had seen going on.
Yeah, as you walk around, you see everybody is into it. Now, so knowledge becomes power. And in this particular state, we have more laws to protect the consumer than all the states put together, believe it or not. I mean, everybody, you know, there are laws upon laws, and there are agencies upon agencies that are out to protect you. And yet, we find, you know, I never see anybody going to jail when somebody's ripped off. I never see anybody get into trouble. We refer, you know, some of these high-flying people, these wage-you boys, to government agencies. Nothing happens. So basically, there's no question about it. The only thing that government will do will increase the cost, because there are fees that people have to pay to do business in this state, where in other states They don't have to be licensed fees and what have you, and overseen, and
so this gets factored into the cost.
It gets factored into the cost. So you're paying for, consumer protection, and you're paying megabucks for it. But you're not protected. Take my word for it. So my advice is to protect yourself. And there are certain things that you got to do.
You're going to help us learn what to do that. Then.
Well, I think the first thing, decide on what you want done and think it through. Think it through to the point, will it enhance? Is it a good investment?
Mm-hmm. Like adding on a room.
Like adding on a room. Will it create,
mm-hmm.
well, let's face it, you could upgrade your property to the point, where it's not,
you won't get the return.
You're not going to get the return in the neighborhood that you live. So, you got to be careful on making your investment. So first, you've thought that through and you say, okay, I want a swimming pool, I want a home, I want this, I want whatever it is you want, whatever it is you need, greenhouse, you name it, whatever you want to build there. Then the next thing you got to do is you got to find a contractor. Now,
this is the tough part.
Right. Now, my recommendation is you find 3 contractors.
Mm-hmm.
Call them in and get very specific in their proposal. And what I mean by specific, I mean, not just I'm going to build this, but what kind of wood I'm going to use, and,
measurements, I suppose.
Everything.
The type of materials.
Right. When it's going to begin, when it's going to end, what kind of materials it's going to be. Everything in the proposal has to be spelled out, including the time frame that it's going to take to do the job, because you don't want somebody to dump the lumber and then come back in the winter, I mean, to finish it.
Well, I understand that this is one of the abuses.
Well, this is one of them, and they're right, and then they walk away from your job and go to another job.
One.
So these are the kinds of things you want in a contract, and I'll come back to the contract in a moment and get a little more specific about that. However, once you have decided on that, you get 3 people in. Now you want to check on the 3 people. I'll come back to the contract, as I say. 3 people. You got 3 contractors in there to put the swimming pool in, and they're pretty similar, 20 by 40 or 10 by 20, whatever it is, in ground, above ground, and there you ought to get some information to find out, because the different types of swimming pools, some of them really disappear.
One might crumble.
Crumble, lining, and what have you, and we do know that the in-ground pool is probably, the gunite pool will last the longest. Of course, it's the most expensive, so you've got to, weigh that. Certainly will improve if you go to sell the house. Now, a swimming pool doesn't really raise the price of your house that much, but it can have that effect when you go to sell it. It is an improvement, whereas an above-ground pool, may
only has disappear,
or even an in-ground pool with a liner, a vinyl liner, it may not last. But so you've made up your mind about what kind of a pool you want to get. Those are personal decisions and financial decisions. Well, so you found the 3 companies, and you've got similar proposals, of what it's going to cost. Now you got to check them out. Now, one way, of course, is you should always call the Better Business Bureau to find out, what their record is. And that service is free. You call up today about the firm. They're in our database. The firm is not only doing business in Sudbury, but they're doing business in Framingham and in Boston and the South Shore and the North Shore, and they may be doing business in Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And we got all of that information in one data bank, and they call up, and we send you a report overnight about that particular firm, specific firm. And you should get the report on all 3 of them. Now, I don't want somebody to call up with, 20 firms out of the yellow pages, but, call up about 3, be reasonable, and we'll send you the report overnight, and the next day you'll get the report about the firm. Now, that'll tell you if people that you don't know, you see, in the old days, people would be in the backyard, and they would talk over the fence, and they'd say, what's his name is a good carpenter, and Mary would tell Janet, well, he did work for Joe, and it didn't come out right. Well, you can't rely on that kind of thing today, because he's doing work for people, that don't know each other. So businessmen build up a record if they have complaints from all over the area, from people that don't know each other. All the complaints are similar. You may have a bad record. Then again, you may have a good record, So you're able to do that, and you get that report, and you read it, and then you begin making your decision based on some facts. What is the firm's record? How long has he been in business? That's all in the report, et cetera, et cetera.
So I was going to say the important point here now is that you're going to do this before you hire.
Before you sign any contractor, before you give him a dime, you know what I mean? No matter what he says, like he'll say to you, you got to do it tonight. It's a special deal. It's going to go off the boards tomorrow. Tell him forget about it. Yes. There's nothing special about it. Take my word for it. He's dealing with you when you're home.
Anytime
and remind me to tell you about dealing in the home and your right to cancel a contract. Okay, so you got the reports on the firm. Another thing you want to do is you want to find out, listing of satisfied customers. I build pools, and, who have you built them for? You may want to go out and see those people, or call those people up, or see the pool. Or if the man says, I do additions, I build, kitchens, you may want to go out and talk to the people that he's built it for. So you want to do that in addition to calling the Better Business Bureau. So this,
So you could gain from their experience.
Gain from their experience. I mean, were you satisfied? Were there any problems? How long did it take? Et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to talk to satisfied customers before you give them money. So you're going to call the Better Business Bureau.
For a report.
Right.
Okay.
Now, not everybody knows everything about everything, I don't. Nobody does. And so we've got a lot of what we call general information. Mm-hmm. And you ought to get that general information if you're interested in lawn care or home improvements or insulation or whatever it may be. We have leaflets, and you can write in, and we'll give you that general information. Sometimes when you ask for a report, the general information is sent out automatically to you with the report. If it's a swimming pool, we try to send you a booklet on swimming pools to tell you all of the things to watch out for and what to look for in signing a contract and what have you. Now I want to get back to that contract.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you before you leave the brochures, who would you call or write to get your brochures?
Well, if you're calling about a firm, we'll send you the type of general information, we call it counseling information, along with the report.
So that comes automatically?
That'll come automatically. If you call about a swimming pool, you'll get a brochure on the swimming pool. But if you want the information earlier, you write to our P.O. Box in Boston and tell them, what leaflets you want, or you want the literature dealing with home improvement. We'll send you a whole package of, our home improvement literature. Most of it, and we'll send you a list of whatever else we have, but we'll send you a supply. Of course, if you're in your letter, you are specific, we'll send you specific literature about that type of home improvement, whether it's driveways or what have you.
And here again, I'm going to stress that this is all preliminary.
Yeah.
Before the literal contract is
right,
signed.
And it's all free, all free. So far you haven't spent a dime, You've called the Better Business Bureau, you've gotten general information, it hasn't cost you anything. You've called up a couple of satisfied customers, Mm-hmm. Now comes the point, of, you got to make a choice. Now, one thing we do caution people, and you'll find this in all the literature, the person who gives you the lowest bid is not always the best. So, you got to be careful. Now, there's some gimmicks which, if we have time, I will try to tell you about, to avoid. But basically, it's not always the lowest price. So you've got to really take the time to do your homework and see, who was satisfied, because, if they're going to use cheap material that's a lower price, and they're not going to do a good job, or basically they're going to do what we call bait, get get you started, and then say, by the way, if you want the wheels on the car, it'll cost you something extra. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It doesn't come with the wheels, so therefore, that's what they call bait to get you in. There are many gimmicks, where they say, we'll use your house as we'll put the swimming pool. You're the model home, we'll give you $50 for, everybody that takes a look at it. And we'll use you as a reference. So, get 100 people, 100 times 50. The swimming pool won't cost you anything, or some song and dance like that. So
yes, I've seen that for siding specifically.
Siding, but they do it for everything, and you just got to be careful. Driveways, sealant firms that come around, that's one thing. Don't deal with itinerants. I happen to be in the neighborhood. The more people get ripped off because somebody happens to be in the neighborhood. I'll do your driveway. It'll only cost you $69. That's cheaper than you doing it. And then they spray your driveway with some kind of gook. And then when you got a complaint, you call the Better Business Bureau. We say, well, what's the name of the firm? I don't know.
Some guy
came to my door and he did it. The problem was it rained the next day and it all washed away. Well, those people are lucky, because other people will complain and say, the next day, every time I walk on my driveway, I'm tracking this crankcase oil in my house, and then I can't get rid of it. It won't dry up. So, you got to be careful. Don't deal with people that happen to be in the neighborhood. And that's why I get back to that whole concept of, check it out. Check it out. This is the home improvement season. Check it out. If you can do a lot of it yourself, do it yourself if you're handy. I'm the kind of person who is very, unhandy.
Your son with the...
Well, I hang a picture up and the wall comes tumbling down. So, I got to get people to do things for me. But, there are a lot of responsible businessmen, a lot of them here in Sudbury, local people. Deal with local people where you can. You're always better off with local people. People don't even look in the phone book to see if the man is listed there or the firm is listed there. If the firm is not listed in the phone book, he's brand new. He hasn't been in business a week and a half.
Yeah, your chances are too great, really, something like that.
Yeah. So you have a lot of people painting homes, with itinerants that walk around. You have people that come around and say, gee, look at those trees. I'll be happy to trim them. And boy, when they're finished with them, take my word for it, you're not going to have a tree. They'll just chop it up and the thing will be dead, by fall. So, people have to know what they're doing, and you want to get, and there are plenty of good, responsible local people. And I always recommend, deal with local people, because they're the easiest to check out. You could find them when you have a problem. Now, we do handle complaints,
And they care about their local reputation, too, so that gives you another
advantage. That's right, but, it's still no guarantee. You still have to do your homework.
Yes.
Just because they're local, you want to find out, what kind of report they have and, who they've done good work for. And you've got to be very, very careful on the agreement. If you don't know how to do, we have sample agreements in this literature, and when you write in or if we mail it to you automatically, it'll tell you, what to look for. And you have to take a look at, your contract, because that's the four corners of what you expect from him and what he expects
and what he's promised
and what the price would be and how you're going to pay it. And, if it's a major contract, don't give them all the money up front.
All right, now, people are more apt to call after they've had the problem, aren't they?
Okay, that's the complaint side of it. Now, I do want to tell you this. If you sign a contract in the home, you have 3 days you could cancel.
Do you have to cancel in writing?
You have to cancel in writing, and you should send a certified letter, not counting the weekend. You can cancel your agreement within 3 days. The law says if the agreement is signed, if the contract is signed in other than the person's place of business. Now remember that, the person's place of business. That means if you buy something at a store, you don't have 3 days to cancel. Or if you go to the home improvement contractor's office and buy it there, you don't have 3. But if you sign the agreement in the home, you have 3 days to cancel. Now, there are other protections for you in purchasing, and that's credit card, because the holder in due course, you can go to the credit card company and they could be of some help to you. Financing through a bank, the law says if that particular firm finances 3 or 4 more jobs through one bank, they don't have the holder in due course doctrine. And in the old days, the banks used to say, you know, I'm sorry that the roof leaks. You know what I mean? But all we did was loan the money.
Yes.
Go find the contractor. Today, the bank has a certain responsibility if they have 3 or more jobs. And I know plenty of banks that had to go out and fix leaky roofs.
All right, but it does give you the leverage where the
It
bank
gives
then
you the
goes after the
leverage,
contractor.
assists you, or makes good if the contractor is out of business, because they cannot plead that, you know, they have nothing to do with it, as long as they have financed 3 or more jobs for
By this particular
by that
contractor.
particular contractor. So a lot of people think, you know, I pay cash and I'm better off. Sometimes you're better off financing it so that you could get this kind of leverage should something go wrong. And, you know, you really don't know something's going to go wrong until the man is finished. You could always pay the note off earlier.
Now, some of these contractors and business people are members of the Better Business Bureau.
That's right.
Some of them are not. If you have a complaint with somebody who's a member, I'm sure that you
It wouldn't
get a
make
lot-
any
It doesn't make any difference. I would have thought they might be faster to rectify.
Well, usually
complaints.
they are. Usually they are, but, you know, we'll handle it as though, you know, they're a member or non-member. Now, there is something new that's coming up in this whole area, not only of home improvement, but just about anything you buy. And that's something called alternate dispute resolution. And what they mean by that, alternate to going to court. And there's an act which is the Uniform Arbitration Act. And many home improvement people are now pre-committed to abide by the decision of a third party.
And can this third party be the BBB?
The third party is the
Is the
BBB. So we have many home improvement people that are pre-committed to arbitration, which means that a third party who doesn't know the consumer or the firm hears the case, and it's generally on site. As an example, you have a kitchen done, and you say, this was a terrible job, you know, that's broken, and that's hanging, and this is this, and that's that. And if the kitchen firm is pre-committed to arbitration, you can ask for arbitration. And then we send you a panel of names, and as long as the person doesn't know the firm and doesn't know you, and they're trained arbitrators, and they go out and they hold a hearing in your house. And they take a look at it, and then they come down with a decision. Now, if the firm is pre-committed, the firm has to live up, under the law, to that decision. Because you're not pre-committed, you could say, I'm not going to accept the decision, I'm going to go to court.
Well, how do you know?
There are times, what's that?
I was going to say, how do you know if that firm is
Just
one of the
ask
ones
them.
who's pre-committed?
Ask
You've
them.
got to ask them.
Ask them if
Okay.
they have an arbitration agreement, you know, with the Better Business Bureau or with an association, because, you know, other people do arbitration, or AAA, American Arbitration Association, anybody. I recommend dealing with firms that are pre-committed to arbitration. If they're not pre-committed, go tell them to get pre-committed. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be with the Better Business Bureau. It can be with anybody. That gives you, it's a lot. If you have a problem, you remember you're talking about maybe a $10, $15, $20, $40,000 home improvement.
Yes.
You've taken an equity loan out on it or something, you know, rather than, you know, a home improvement loan. Because it's cheaper. You could, on the equity loan, you know, you could take it off your taxes, whereas a home improvement loan,
Well,
you may
certainly
not be able to.
You'd have a lot more confidence in a contractor who would agree to
Binding
to
arbitration.
binding arbitration, because he would have to be relatively confident in his work to do that.
His workmanship, because basically it's a subjective kind of thing. Is the workmanship good? Is it, you know,
On the
what
cabinets
they
hanging,
call
for goodness.
is a
Yes.
good workmanship, because that's sometimes it's not so objective, because we've seen some jobs, as I say, it's anybody could take a look at it. So the third party looks at it and says fix it, or they award the consumer, part of the money back to go fix it. And these awards are enforceable in court. In some cases, both parties are pre-committed, both the businessman and the consumer. And in those cases, both parties have to abide by the decision.
They agree.
So before you sign the contract, you want to know, is there an arbitration clause there? At least whether both parties are pre-committed or whether the firm is pre-committed. And of course, sometimes it's just a firm that's pre-committed.
Well, I know I had occasion to use the BBB myself on the cars when the Oldsmobiles were being recalled, or the powertrain had to be replaced. But I know that working with BBB meant that I got the repair done at no cost. And I was talking something like $500.
Well, we've had buybacks for automobiles, and we still do arbitration for automobiles.
Because that must be a big area, too, that you deal in.
Yeah, it's one of the top areas. Of course, right now it's home improvement. It's still automobiles, but it's also time sharing, a lot of complaints about that. Everybody's winning prizes, you are the winner, you've won the big Cadillac, or the gold this, or the that, or, all kinds of rip-offs with travel, and, you got to really check everything out. Anything coming to your house, that you are the winner, and, you are lucky, and this has been your day. Sign today, otherwise you won't. And
I think I get 3 of those a week.
Everybody does, and just check it out before you follow through on it, because you may find yourself visiting some land promotion somewhere, and being beaten over the head by a high-pressure salesman to buy something. There's just no free lunch. I can assure you of that. I think the people in Sudbury and this whole general area do take the time. A lot of our arbitrators come from here that we've trained, that live right in town. They hear a case or two every now and then, when we're not able to mediate it. And most of the time, when you have arbitration, you can mediate the case a lot better, because the businessman, he doesn't want to go to arbitration. He may lose the case.
And again, his reputation is involved, and I know that's very important to someone in business. Now, I'm among the people who believe that the private sector does a much better job in protecting us and in overseeing many of the things that are going on. Can you give us a little brief recap of what the state government might be doing or might be involved in doing? Well,
they pass a lot of laws. They've got large bureaucracies. There's the Department of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. They license just about everybody, and if they
do you serve in advisory capacity sometime?
Paula Gold is the head of that department, and of course we work very, very closely together. Of course, she has just left that department to go to work for she's Secretary of Consumer Affairs, and very shortly she's announced she'll be going to work for New England Electric Company. Part of her department was the Department of Public Utilities, so now she's going to be working for the electric company.
On the other side of this, really?
Well, kind of, yeah. And the insurance commissioner, if you remember, he left, and now he's already gone. He's already working for an insurance company, and of course he's dealing with the same his people that have been appointed through the years and what have you. So then there's another big agency from the Attorney General's office, and that's Consumer Protection Office and Public Protection, and they do some things. I'm not quite sure what they do. We send a lot of complaints to them that we feel, look, if there's a violation of law, we don't get involved in it. I mean,
Then it should go on to the Attorney General's office.
Attorney General's office, or some government agency. I mean, this is stealing from people, and I'm not a law enforcement agency. I mean, if there's a misunderstanding, or you could straighten out a problem between a consumer and a businessman, it's one thing. But if it's an out-and-out rip-off and a violation of the law, I got to do what every other citizen does. I got to yell, "Hey, police!" That's what we do. We turn it over to, and there are lots and lots of agencies that are set up to do that kind of thing. And I think, as I said earlier, we do not see people going to the Who's Gavel.
Well, do you want to give us the phone number again, Len, that a person can call if they want to get some information or get some of these brochures sent out to them?
First let me say, this is an excellent book that people ought to get. That's
the Massachusetts Consumer Resource Guide.
And that's if you can write for that. But I'd give you every resource. I'm just opening it up to employment security, electrologists. It just tells you Board of Registration, Department of Human Services. You look under elderly, senior citizens, funerals, you name it. It gives you just about every agency. Fuel, you got a problem with fuel.
So we would write to you.
Yeah, you can get a copy of this, and hairdressers and handicapped and legal aid, and it tells you just about everything in the state. And it's the Massachusetts Consumer Resource Guide that we do. And then we have these pamphlets that, you can write for a variety. This is lawn care, home improvement, 27 questions for homeowners, which is very, very good. Air conditioning. Big thing right now is water. Everybody's concerned about water, and a lot of people are getting ripped off with water treatment in the house, and you better read this
I've seen those ads too, where they come
before you buy it. And
all kinds of radiating colors,
hot tubs and home insulation, and these are just a few of them. And we got them on every possible subject. But the easiest place, just where we have the BBB in Metro West that takes in this whole area is located in Framingham, and basically that's a number that people ought to call, and they can get reports. For Information Central, it's 508, just like it is here, 872-5585. And if they have an automobile complaint, we have a special hotline, 1-800-325-1222. And you could also make complaints by using either one of those numbers.
And the important thing to remember is you call the Better Business Bureau first, before you sign the contract. This has been Mary Jane Hillery and Leonard Sanders talking to you for the record.